Hello dear viewers. Could you imagine a situation being so wronged, so silenced, and the only way to express your pain is through song? Long ago, in ancient mythology, there was a woman named Philomela. She lost her voice after a tragic betrayal. But instead of remaining voiceless, she was transformed into a bird, Nightingale. Her hauntingly beautiful song filled the night. The song carried her sorrow and her resilience. This myth echoes through centuries, and it finds its way into the poem that we are going to explore now. The Nightingale or Philomela by Sir Philip Sidney. Dear viewers, myself Professor Meshramkar S.P from Department of English, J.A.T, Arts, Science and Commerce College for Women, Malegaon. First, we'll focus on the writer. The poem, The Nightingale, is written by the great Renaissance poet, Sir Philip Sidney. He was born on 30th November 1554. He died on 17th October 1586, means at the age of 36. The cause of his death was gangrene. He belonged to the period of Elizabethan era. He wrote sonnets and pastoral romances. His notable works are Astrophel and Stella, The Countess of Pembroke and Arcadia. The present poem was written in 1598. This poem contains 24 lines with 2 stanzas. Each stanza contains 12 lines. Ovid's Book 6 of Metamorphoses tells the story of Philomela. The story of Philomela is classical Greek myth. Philomela, the daughter of an Athenian king, she was raped by her sister's husband, Tereus. In order to silence Philomela, Tereus cut off her tongue. She wanted to tell about her molestation to her sister, but as Tereus cut off her tongue, she managed to weave the crime on a tapestry. She showed it to her sister Procne, and her sister took revenge upon her husband by serving him their son's boiled flesh and fled to take shelter in the Pantheon. Philomela and Procne both ran away from Tereus, but he followed them. This story ends when the god turned the 3 of them into birds. Procne is transformed or turned into a swallow. Philomela into a nightingale and Tereus into a hoopoe. In Sidney's poem, the speaker imagines Philomela as a nightingale lamenting her rape at the beginning of spring. In doing so, the speaker contrasts her ability to express her sadness with his own ability. So here, dear viewers, in this picture, we can see that these three birds are transformed as nightingale, swallow and hoopoe. And the present poem tells us about the lament of Philomela as well as the lament of the speaker. Now first we'll see the text. The Nightingale or Philomela by Sir Philip Sidney. The nightingale, as soon as spring April bringeth unto her rested saints a perfect waking, while late bare earth, proud of new clothing, spring sings out her woes, athon her song book making, and mournfully bewailing. Her throat in tunes expresseth what grief her breast oppressed, for Tereus' force on her chest will prevailing. O Philomela fair, O take some gladness, that here is just a cause of plainful sadness. Thine earth now springs, mine fadeth, thy thorn without, my thorn, my hurt envieth. Alas, she hath no other cause of anguish, but Tereus' love on her by strong hand broken, wherein she suffering all her spirit's languish, full woman-like complaints, her will was broken. But I, who daily craving cannot have to content me, have more cause to lament me, since wanting is more woe than too much having. O Philomela fair, O take some gladness, that here is just a cause of painful sadness. Thine earth now springeth, mine fadeth, thy thorn without, my thorn, my heart envieth. Philomela laments her rape, and at the beginning of spring she wakes up from the slumber of winter and she sings. The speaker compares his own sadness with the sadness of Philomela. Now here we can see in this image this beautiful lady is Philomela and she is transformed into nightingale. And this nightingale is singing song. It means she is expressing her grief, her sorrow for being raped by her brother-in-law. In stanza second, we can see these two sisters, Philomela and Procne. and the force or the power used by Darius to molest Philomela. So dear viewers, here this poem, Philomela, reflects the themes of sorrow, betrayal, and transformation. This poem explores Philomela's grief through the lens of her song as the Song of Nightingale. Now here, this poem touches the idea of transformation. These two sisters and even the husband of Procne were transformed into birds. Through this poem, Sidney has focused this Greek mythological story. Not only this, but he has reflected on the enduring nature of pain and the role of an art in expressing the pain when words fail. Because Philomela wants to tell her sister about the molestation, but as her tongue was cut off by her brother-in-law, she shared the whole incident to her sister by weaving it out on a tapestry. In this way, she turned her pain into art. So here, we could say that Sir Philip Sidney has focused that art can present or art can express so many things. Now here, we'll focus on the first stanza. Now in the first stanza, the poet says, "The nightingale, as soon as April bringeth unto her rested saints a perfect waking, while late bare earth, proud of new clothing, spring sings out her woes, athorn her song book making, a mournful bewailing, her throat in tunes expresseth, what grief her breast oppressed, for Tereus' force on her chest will prevailing." Now here, we can say that the poet says, "O nightingale, as soon as April bringeth." Now here the nightingale is introduced, and it is said that as the spring season starts, or in the month of April, the spring season arrives, and it marks the arrival of beauty of nature. Now here, in this stanza, the speaker narrates the nightingale's experience as spring begins. In early April, the nightingale wakes up from the slumber of winter. Before the arrival of spring, the barren world is transformed into proud new clothing. It means the spring blossoms, and everywhere there is beauty. So the earth gets new clothing, means the beautiful cloth. But though there is beauty in external world, the nightingale cries out. She expresses her pain over her rape by terriers into song. Here she sings out her woes, means she expresses her woes, and a thorn her songbook making. Now this thorn means the rape. So she externalizes her pain through the song, and she mournfully bewails, means she mournfully expresses her grief. Her throat expresses her grief. The tune is melancholic tune, and here she tries to express her woe, her grief. It means Philomela Philomela suffers a lot because of the molestation by her brother-in-law. So she makes her thorn or pain into a songbook, and her tunes are sad tunes. Now here, later on, the poet says, or the speaker in this poem addresses to Philomela, and the speaker says, "O Philomela, take some gladness, that here is just a cause of plainful sadness. Thine earth now springs, mine fadeth, thy thorn without, my thorn, my hurt in width." Now here the speaker compares his condition with the condition of Philomela. Now here the poet has used apostrophe. He directly addresses to Philomela, and now the speaker instructs her to take gladness. The speaker or the poet in this poem says that her world is brightening. She is able to express herself, but the speaker's world is growing more and more desolate. He is unable to turn his grief outward. The speaker has used the symbol of thorn to represent pain and grief. Philomela and Philomela's grief is outwardly visible, but the poet's grief is internal. He cannot express it. He cannot express his unrequited love. Here, Philomela expresses her grief because she is a woman. It means her womanhood is expressed through her behavior. Now, here we find there is difference in the response to a grief by a woman and by a man. A woman expresses her grief, but it is difficult for a man to express his grief. She sings out her woes, her grief, her sorrow, but the speaker is unable to do it because he knows that being a man, it is difficult. Now, here the speaker says, Thine earth now springs, mine fadeth, thy thorn without, my thorn, my hurt envieth. Means the thorn of Philomela is visible, but the thorn of the poet or the speaker is not visible. Now in the second stanza, the poet again tries to express his grief. The first stanza contains 12 lines. The second stanza too contains 12 lines. In second stanza, the speaker states that Philomela or the Nightingale is sad because Tereus has imposed his will on her by force of strength or by power. Here, the poet says, Alas, she hath no other cause of anguish but Tereus' love on her by strong hand wrought, wherein she suffering at her spirit's languish, full woman-like complains, her will was broken. Here he says that Philomela is sad because Tereus used his power by his strong hands, and because of his power she suffered. Her spirit languished, and as she was raped and overpowered by Tereus, she made complaint. Now here he accepts everything and he says that it is woman-like, because in fourth line the poet says, full woman-like complains, her will was broken. So it means it was natural that she made complaint or she expressed her sorrow or her grief for being raped by her brother-in-law. But in the next lines he compares his grief or his sorrows with the sorrow or the grief of Philomela. He says, But I, who daily craving, cannot have to content me, have more cause to lament me, since wanting is more woe than too much having. Now here, the woman-like complaints of Philomela are compared with the manly complaints of the speaker. The speaker says he has more cause to complain because he suffers from unfulfilled romantic longing or wanting. Now here he says this wanting is worse than too much having. In short, he says that in case of Philomela, she had unwanted intercourse with her brother-in-law, but in case of the speaker, he did not get that type of happiness from anyone. Now here, The poet or the speaker in this poem says that he is unsatisfied, he is not content, and as he is not satisfied, there is cause for his grief, for his sorrow, or for his lamentation. And therefore, again, the poet addresses to Philomela, saying that, O Philomela, fair, O take some gladness, that here is just a cause of plainful sadness. Thine earth now springs, mine fadeth, thy thorn without, my thorn, my heart in width. Now again, the speaker addresses her. These lines are repeated. Again, the message is echoed, and the speaker wants to say that his fate is worse than the fate of Philomela. She should take solace in the knowledge that she could have it worse. Here, the poet says that, or the speaker says that, he is unable to sing out his woes as Philomela does. It means the transferred Philomela, the nightingale, expresses her grief, her sorrow through her songs. But it is not possible for the speaker to reveal his pain or to reveal his grief. And therefore, he says to the nightingale or the Philomela to be happy or to take some gladness. Now here, in this poem, the poet has used various literary devices. The poet has used figures of speech. These figures of speech are personification, metaphor, allusion, as well as transferred epithet. Sir Philip Sidney, who belonged to Elizabethan era, has used Greek mythological story to focus the speaker's too much grief or too much sorrow for his unrequited love. Now here, Ovid's story tells us about Philomela, and the speaker in the poem compares his sorrow with the sorrow of Philomela. So, this poem is a very beautiful poem, very interesting poem, which refers to the agony of Philomela, who was raped by Tereus, her sister's husband. But the grief of Philomela is compared with the grief of the speaker. Philomela, who turned into nightingale, sings out her grief, and the word metamorphosis is perfect one, because the meaning of metamorphosis is transformation. And as Tereus desired for Philomela and he raped that hapless girl against her will, he ravished her physical purity. He destroyed her chastity, and later on, these three means Philomela, her sister Procne, and her brother-in-law all turned into birds. Now, Philomela transformed into bird Nightingale expresses her grief, and the speaker or the poet also desires to express his grief. Here, the speaker craves the love of a lady, but everything is in vain because the name of the lady is not mentioned. But we come to know that his love is unrequited love, and therefore the poet has used the word thorn. Now this thorn invades his heart, and the frustration of the poet or the speaker is very well expressed through this poem, The Nightingale or Philomela. So here it is an interesting poem of Renaissance period. So dear viewers, thank you for watching. Thank you.